Hello, and welcome to season 2 of Confidence and Creativity. I am so excited to have our first guest to kick off our 2021 season. I am talking with Lori Ruffin today. She is the founder of the COO Team, a virtual operations agency that equips nonprofits and companies with strategy and systems to grow their impact and income. Driven by a desire to multiply the effectiveness of social impact organizations, Lori has a knack for helping visionary leaders translate vision into strategy and strategy into execution. Lori is a committed thought partner for executives. She is passionate about helping social impact ventures succeed through expanding their internal capacity. Lori has worked with the Richmond Justice Initiative, Thriving Cities, Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce, and so many more. She currently lives in Richmond, Virginia with her husband and 2 daughters. And when she's not investing in people, you can find her enjoying her city's best ice cream with her family. So, Lori, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Samantha. I'm so glad to be with you today. It's been
Yes.
it's been a wild rodeo here, but I'm so excited to be in 2021. It's a new year, new opportunity, and so I'm just really glad to be with you.
Yes, excellent. I am so excited to have you. And I have had the pleasure of knowing you for several years and seeing your entrepreneurship journey. And so I'm just so excited to introduce you to this audience. And so just wanted to kick it off and ask you to just share your journey, because what I love about talking with entrepreneurs is that nobody's journey is the same. Everyone has a different origin story. So how did you get into entrepreneurship? What was your passion for it?
Yes, wow. But what a great question. I think early in life, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I recently was participating in a game, and they were saying share something that most people don't know about you, that no one would guess. And my my answer for that is that I sold crayon shavings to my my colleagues in school. My
Wow.
Yeah, my friends from school. So I knew that I was able to offer things and that other people would be willing to pay for. And so the desire started at a really young age, but really it took on meaning when somewhere around my preteen area, my preteen age range, I began to think I really want to help people fulfill their purpose.
Mm,
And I knew immediately that everything had a business component to it. And so if I studied business, I would have the skills to be able to help people really get focused and organize their dreams, organize their vision and ideas, and be able to put it into something that could really provide value for people. And so studied business in undergrad, started out in corporate America, and at first I thought I would, start a small company and or a nonprofit and change the world, but I ended up in corporate America where I
yeah.
was able to hone my skills. And then I made my foray into a startup that built brands for international missions organizations. And then I found myself tackling entrepreneurship full time. So it's been quite a journey and it's been a fun ride. And I guess this year makes 8 years in.
That's amazing. That is awesome. So, Lori, I would definitely describe you as somebody who, I guess the term now is multi-hyphenate, right? So people who are in a little bit of everything, they have multiple talents, multiple passions, and you have so many different things that you do well and so many directions that you could go in. So, what made you really hone in and focus on strategy specifically for organizations?
Yeah, so when I first left corporate America, I started working with a startup marketing agency. And my role there was to manage the client relationships and help them set up infrastructure. But the focus of the agency itself was really to help organizations define who they were and have brand collateral that reflected their mission.
Mhm.
When we got into working with them, we really helped them clarify their identity, and we also helped them strengthen the way that they were communicating themselves with their stakeholders, but we didn't address operations. And so
Mm,
I was thinking these organizations are doing amazing work, but they lack, in some cases, business acumen to
yeah.
really align their identity into their execution such that they could have a deeper or broader impact. And so that really got my head thinking, what can we do to really not just improve their communications, but really improve their impact?
Yeah.
Because communications is one significant piece, but then how that strategy translates into execution and operations is another piece. So that's
Right.
what got me started about that. I just had an itch to deepen and expand the impact of the clients that we served. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent. That's great. So I guess going into that strategic piece and that operations piece, I'm really curious to get your insight on that a little more deeply because I know a lot of people when, we launch into entrepreneurship, for a lot of people it's because we want to escape that, corporate trauma that we experience, right? And so it's like, okay, we want to go out, we want to do this on our own, do it our way. We don't need all those, stuffy systems or stuffy processes. But what happens is, there's only so far we can go on our own as a solo, right? And but
Yes.
then it's like we also don't want to create the thing that we wanted to be free from or the thing that we wanted to do differently.
Yeah.
So what is that journey like from an operations perspective? Like when we're, for those who are starting out in business, just thinking ahead and want to get ahead of it, what
Hmm.
should we be thinking about from that operations perspective?
Okay. So one thing I will say, when people are founding organizations, they start because they have some sort of passion, whether it's a
Mhm.
passion to escape or a passion to solve a problem.
Yeah.
There's still this energy around creating something new. The problem is that passion is not sustainable. So it's only sustained by strategy and systems. And
Yeah.
I would say both. So when I first started working with organizations and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to double down on this operations part, I realized you can't operationalize an organization that has no strategy. You
Mm.
have to have clear direction. And so there are some fundamental elements that we call grounding elements through my company, the COO team. We say that organizations need to be really clear around their vision. What is
Mhm.
that big goal, like the horizon that they're pushing towards? What would be different in the world as a result of an organization doing their purpose or selling their services, providing their products,
Yeah.
etc. Having clarity around that vision, then having clarity around the mission, which is specifically what does that organization do and for whom?
Mhm.
Whose problem are you solving and how do you do it? And that's a little bit more concrete. And then thinking about the values, what beliefs, core beliefs are going to guide you along the way that you will not compromise as you fulfill your work. Then and only then that you have that you're able to set some goals around
Yeah.
what you're going to accomplish, and then think about the systems that are needed to support those goals. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. So I guess if you're, as you're starting, is there kind of system of questions or series of questions that you should be, thinking about as you're building so that you don't go too far, and say, "Oh shoot, we don't have we don't have the structure in place."
Yes, absolutely. So we call it the five core factors.
Mhm.
So number one, organization needs to be clear on identity, and we just listed those pieces, right? So your vision, mission, values. So have clarity around your identity. Then you want to have clarity around your strategy, and that's really a self-awareness as an entrepreneur, as well as for your organization, of what your strengths, your weaknesses are, your opportunities out in the marketplace, the
Yeah.
threats that could take you out if you're not paying attention. Have a real clear understanding of that. And then what are the goals that you're moving towards? And so between that self-awareness around your SWOT, if you will, and having those goals of what you're moving towards, then you have your strategy set. The
Yeah.
third component is systems. So, like when you're thinking about systems, there are also five things that we like to refer to that every organization needs to think about. Your systems for you as the pioneer. What are the things that you need in order to work like clockwork and
Mhm.
organize yourself? Because sometimes we can be so creative and so out of the box that we get lost in the minutia of what we're doing,
Yeah.
right? So that's systems for the pioneer. Systems for your people. The team that you're building, is there clarity around what you're inviting them to do, what their roles and responsibilities need to be, what's their scope of work, all of that. And then you want to have the third P would be around promotions. And so
Mm,
we use that as like the buzzword for internal and external communication. So
mm-hmm.
do you have a brand in place that says, what do you look like, what do you sound like, and then do you have a system that you use to communicate with your stakeholders? So that's
Yeah.
kind of both internal and external, and so that's that P, promotions. The fourth P is profit. What's going on with the money? We need to
Yeah.
know, do you have a place, a system where you track all of your expenses and your revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep it in a system so you don't have any tax problems later, and you are able to budget as well as know how are you performing over time. So you want to think about what are your profit systems. And then lastly, you want to have a project management system. So although I love post-it notes and I could probably put my hands on one right now on my desk,
Right.
it is not a good idea to try to manage a business through post-it notes.
Right.
So kind of project management system, whether it's Asana, Trello, Monday.com, something to hold all of those tasks in
Mm-hmm.
one place so that you can be focused on when are you doing what, and also your team can be focused on when is everybody else doing what they're doing. So those are 5 systems that I think are really important. And then the last 2 factors, so there's identity, strategy, systems, and then the last 2 factors that I think every organization needs to be thinking about is ethos and talent. So
Mm,
ethos is speaking to the type of culture that you create in your organization, right? And being really clear about how are your values lived inside your organization, through your team interactions, as well as what the people that you serve can expect from you. And then the talent, like who is actually on your team, what kind of skills do you need and when, in order to fulfill your mission. So I know that was a lot, but those are like really the 5 factors that every organization needs to be thinking about. And if an organization is taking the time to think through their identity, think through their strategy, their systems, their talent, and their ethos, then you'll find that you really won't be blindsided on
mm.
like, oh man, we didn't account for this, because you have an awareness and you're actively putting things in place to move your organization forward.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. So let me see if I can repeat those. So it's identity, strategy,
Yes,
systems, ethos, and talent.
yes, yes.
Excellent. Those
Those
are
are the core
great.
5.
Yes, great tips to remember. So talking about the talent, sometimes there's a fear to, bring people on to
Oh yeah.
work with you because you're just like, okay, you know, how do I know if I'm ready to bring someone on? And if I've kind of been, managing my business on post-it notes, like that works for me, but I don't really know how to translate that to someone else. And so, I
Yeah.
bring somebody else in, they don't understand my post-it note system, and then we're both frustrated because neither one of us is communicating with each other, and we're not achieving the goal that we want, right? So
Yes.
then we just say, this is why I just decided to be an entrepreneur and just be solo, right? So you get rid of the team and you go back to yourself, and you're just frustrated. So what do you say to that?
Yes. So first of all, I say a lot of people say those things. A lot of people feel that way. So you are not alone. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, when I think about bringing in that next person, I'm overwhelmed instantly. I get it. A lot
Yeah.
of people are that way. But this is what I will say. If you want to grow your business, you're going to have to grow your team. It's
Yeah.
just that's what it is, because there's only so many hours in a day. And truth be told, a lot of us left corporate America because we didn't want to work all of these long hours and be doing all the work with just a cap or a ceiling on our pay,
Yeah.
And so what we can find though is when we step into the world of entrepreneurship, now we're responsible for everything. We're responsible for ordering the supplies, coming up with the strategy, implementing the strategy, coordinating with marketing,
Yeah.
designing. We wear all these hats. Well, that can be a whole nother shackle, if you
Right?
will. The only way that we can really break through and break free is through growing our team. So
Hmm.
some of those pieces that we talked about earlier are exactly what you need to leverage in order to have a team in place.
Yeah.
So clear identity is so critical. Like you cannot skip that part, because it's hard to invite someone to join you and you don't know where you're going,
Mm,
right? So you're going to want to make sure that you have that clear vision, that you have clarity around who do we serve
yeah.
and how, and you have those core values so that you make sure that you're inviting the right type of person onto your team. And then from a strategy piece, we want to make sure that you are really clear around the goals that you're pursuing, because that will help you know what kind of team do you need.
Yeah.
So when someone is thinking about building their team, we encourage them to build out a people plan. So if you have a pen, grab your pen, because I'm going to give you another list.
All right,
A
taking some notes. Take some notes,
Yes.
y'all.
So an effective people plan addresses the following things. You have clarity around a talent acquisition plan. Who do you need on your team, and when do you need them? So your first hire is going to be a critical hire, and you want to know what skill sets, soft skills and hard skills, do you need in that person that you're bringing on a team. And that person doesn't have to be full time. It could be that you're bringing them in part time to fulfill specific roles that you already know in advance that you're going to need based on your strategic plans and what you're looking to accomplish, right? And so then you're going to want to have an onboarding plan. How are you going to get this person up to speed in 90 days? So, like we talked about and we laughed earlier, just saying that the post-it notes are not going to be enough to convey all
Right.
that's in your head to the new person.
Yeah.
So, an onboarding plan will think through, what do I need to actually tell this person? What passwords do I need to give them? What responsibilities am I going to give them? How am I going to pace their work? And how am I also going to bring them into the organizational culture?
Yeah.
And how do I get them up to speed to where they are providing value quickly, ideally within 90 days? And
That's good.
so that's what an onboarding plan does. But then you're also going to want to have like a team communication plan. Like, how are you going to communicate with them ongoing? Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is not corporate America where we're going to give them a laptop and sit them in a corner and just ignore them. Like, that's money, right? So you got to make sure that there's ways to keep them engaged, keep them aligned, knowing where the organization is going so that they're bringing their best talent, their best thinking, to combine with yours to
Yeah.
move in the direction of your organization. Then we're going to also want to make sure that you have a performance review process in
Mm.
place, right? So we've all worked, whether it was with coworkers or we were supervising people or even being supervised, where we needed to give feedback or either even receive feedback.
Yeah.
And we had so much trepidation around it, like, how's this conversation going to go? We encourage people to demystify that by having a performance review plan that makes sense, that's simple, that connects a person's roles and responsibilities to the objectives of the organization. And then, even more than that, to have conversations all along the way so that there
Yeah.
are no surprises by the time we sit down to talk about performance
That's
reviews,
good.
right? So these are some of the elements that we encourage organizations to build, to make up their people plan. And by having these things kind of built out and these processes built out in advance, it really helps organizations feel more confident when they're getting ready to expand their team, whether
Yeah.
that's employee 1 or employee 15. And we work with organizations, a variety of sizes. We tend to serve small to mid-size,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, we've worked with organizations that they're getting ready to take that plunge and make that first hire, as well as, their sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth hire, but it's making sure that they have the infrastructure to support that team well. And the last thing I'll just say is that when leaders don't have those kind of plans in place, they are shooting from the hip, and the employees know it. The contractors, the
Mm.
1099s, they know it. Like, and they end up being frustrated. It's
Oh
hard to
yeah.
retain people where they don't know, how does what I do tie into the mission of the organization?
Right.
I don't know what's expected of me, and it just can lead to, like, frustration. So we're like, let's skip all of that by doing that fundamental work to build out the people plan.
Yes, no, that's excellent. So you actually hit on something I wanted to touch on. Now we are in this, continuing pandemic world, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of people now are still in this virtual, or have, even for the first time, I would say, going into that virtual space of managing teams remotely. So, are there different things that organizations need to be thinking about when you're working with a virtual team versus someone who's in person?
Yes, I think what we have to remember is just intentionality. Part of, you know, the learning in 2020, everybody really was taken by surprise.
Yeah.
We just were like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that we could do yesterday that we can't do now. And it hit everybody. Our children came home from schools, so you had noise in the background, you had people having to navigate both work responsibilities and home
Yeah.
responsibilities. And some of those boundaries have kind of been blurred. And
Mhm.
so, what we really encourage people to do is remember the people. Like
Mm.
remember that your team is not made up of machines. These are humans that
Yeah.
have emotions, that have concerns, that have stressors. And so, one of the things that we talk about, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but we talk about ethos and like really focusing on how do you invest in your team. So having conversations around like the things that matter to them. Not
Mhm.
every conversation needs to be around like your deliverable and when are you going to submit this and when are you going to get done, but how are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you handling the stress of this? Is there anything that I can help you with?
Right.
That kind of human component is something that just can't be forgotten
Yeah.
in a time like this. We're coming up on a year of being under these conditions. And so we think it's really important to make sure that as you're interacting with your team, that you are speaking to the whole person, not
Right.
just the value adding component of the person that's on your team.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really, really good. So as far as having those more, I guess, holistic conversations, what is your take on kind of how far leaders should go with that, especially with, a lot of the social unrest that we're experiencing right now, the political environment that's in an uproar, like, for sometimes it's more challenging to have those conversations than others, depending on, the structure of your team, how well you know your team, if you've
Yes.
ever tried to be, empathetic with them before, or holistic before, maybe you never have. And now, you don't want to just come out saying the wrong question, or, suddenly having this heart to heart conversation, right?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, so with any relationship, trust is built over time, but I think genuine interest and not trying to go too deep too fast. Like we're not
That's
asking people
good.
to tell you your deepest darkest secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these are professional relationships, but just letting people know that just acknowledging these are difficult times.
Hmm.
These are pressurized topics and situations. How are you doing? And giving people the respect and the courtesy of knowing that you see them,
Yeah.
and that if they want to share, if they want to talk, that you are available to listen. That empathy, practicing empathy. Brene Brown has a lot of great resources around empathy.
Yes.
And, I would just encourage, anyone who's trying to increase their emotional intelligence to listen to some of her talks or some of her books and utilize that language in the workplace. Because if you want to have a solid team, like great teams are not just great because people only know their role and position. They're
Right.
bought in at the heart level. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to be bought in when you don't think that the person that you work with or work for cares about you.
Mm.
And there's no reason as a small organization, as a nonprofit, small business, that we can't cultivate that type of culture
Yeah.
where we are a team that cares for one another. We are a team that is concerned about one another, that we respect each other's boundaries, but that we say, hey, like I'm here. I care, and I'm ready to be supportive in any way that I can. So
Yeah.
those kind of things, and then even expressing appreciation. Um,
Mm,
for the people, for the way that people provide value to your
yeah.
business. Yes, folks are getting paid, but they people have options. You know what I mean? It's a gig
True.
economy. And so the fact that someone gets up every day and works to advance your mission and your vision is something that shouldn't be taken for granted. And I think that when people feel celebrated, um, when it's more than just about the organization, I think it increases emotional equity and relational
Right.
capital within that person, and it ends up being something that generates a return. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A
Yeah.
return on investment. So
No, that is excellent advice. Excellent advice. I really like how you said don't go too deep too quickly. I think that's definitely something to hold on to, but definitely also being genuine and letting your team know that you are available for them. That is so so important.
one other thing I would also say is also leading by vulnerability. So I
Mm,
don't think that as a leader, like leaders lead, right? Like we lead the way. It's not okay to kind of stay bottled up while you draw other people out and you stay guarded.
yeah,
Um, it may be that if it's something where you feel like there's a lot of variety of perspective and opinion, maybe it's not so good to kind of go deep with this is what I think it should be, but just to
mm,
say acknowledge this is really hard for us. This is and kind of lean into like I feel this way, like I feel concerned, that kind of thing, where it just kind of shows our own humanity as leaders, our own struggle, our own wrestling, and then that kind of helps provide a open door for the people who are following us to be able to do the same and connect with their own selves and where they are. So I just wanted to say that it's a two-way street, because I think it's
yes.
really important to model vulnerability. So I'll just give an example. As the leader of the COO team, I have really small children.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest is 4 and very energetic, which
Yeah.
of course
Yep.
and then the youngest will be 2 in February. And,
Wow.
there are times where they have needs. My husband
Yeah.
works a full-time job and the children are in the house, and most of the time we have childcare. And then there are a couple times where either of us are responsible. So, and so it I say that to say the people that I work with, they see my real life. They see my real
Mm,
struggle, not a plastic, perfected version of Lori Michelle Ruffin. They
yeah.
see I am living life. I too am adjusting to the pandemic. I too feel the stressors of our world doesn't look anything of what it looked like, this time last year.
That's
So
good.
I think by being transparent, it helps us connect as humans,
Yeah.
and then we can do good in the world together when we know that I'm not working with a machine or someone who thinks they're perfect. I'm
Mm,
working with someone who also is human and is dealing with human emotions and challenges like just like I am.
yes. No, that those are great points. And one of the things that I hope stays even after we are, able to interact in person more frequently again is I hope that human element and human awareness continues because I really think, that's needed. Even if you're not in a pandemic, just the stressors of everyday life are real, And so I think that before we were able to kind of hide behind this facade of get it done, execute, I'll sleep when I'm dead, all those things that we said were like a badges of honor for many of us. And
Yes.
now we're able to or really forced to say, we do more than work. We do more than output all the time. And so these are the things that we need to be aware of. Self-care is kind of a trend now, right? But really that's something we should be doing anyway, right?
Yes.
So it's like it
Yes.
should not take a pandemic to be like, oh, maybe I should slow down. Maybe I shouldn't say yes to everything. Maybe I'm
Yes.
running around and too much, maybe I've never seen my kids for more than 30 minutes in a week, So it's just things
Yes.
that we have not thought about at all that
Yes.
I really hope will continue even after we're able to gather together again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
I really do. If those things remain, I think that we will have emerged better, through this trial. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yes, yes, excellent. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, Lori, and I hope everybody listening was taking some notes. Everyone listening or watching, if you need to go back, rewind, definitely do that, and feel free to share with other entrepreneurs or even just other leaders in any area that might need to strengthen their systems and their organization. So, Lori, what's something that helps you to keep everything organized and functioning? What are some systems that have worked well for you?
Yes. Well, I really took the opportunity to kind of reset myself at the top of the year. I'm not really a big New Year's kind of resolution person,
Hmm.
but I do feel like every time we are blessed to go into another year, it's like a new chapter.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that whatever was going on yesterday, last year, it does not have to continue if we can be intentional around, what's going on. I found myself at the end of the year really reflecting, looking back, and I guess my personality type, and then with just the clients that we were serving, I jumped right in.
Yeah.
Last year, when everything got disrupted, I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to support our clients and how to really help them pivot? And, I was no stranger to being online. So I really got into action. And then we had the uprising with everything in response to, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and then
Yeah.
the subsequent, riots. And so just given the types of organizations that I serve, again, I kind of like rose to the challenge. Well, by the time I got to like August, September, October, it started catching up with me like, wow, wait a minute. I haven't grieved what's been lost this year.
Mm,
There are many deaths of people that I know, some, according to COVID, and just, and then being online. Like, again, we were already online, but many conferences, helping organizations go from in-person conferences to online.
yeah.
All of those things, by the time I got to the end of the year, I needed to rest and I needed to refuel and I needed to refocus. And so I decided that at the top of the year, I would really come in with a new regimen, getting more sleep, going to sleep earlier,
That's good.
waking up at 5 in the morning. I know it's kind of early, but
Yes.
we invested in some more home workout equipment. And so
Awesome.
I exercise, I listen to scripture for
Yeah.
just a good period of time. I sit in the dark and quiet, jot some notes that I reflect on, and then I'm ready to embrace the day. And hopefully, if the kids are sleeping, they do not wake up that early. So I've got a good window to be able
Yeah.
to get these things done prior to the day. And also, I drink water. I drink
Yes.
my largest amount of water in the morning. And these are just kind of like some personal systems that I put in place because I knew I cannot have the impact that I desire to have. I cannot serve and equip, these social impact leaders and give my best to them if I'm not taking care of myself. And I
Yes.
also cannot be there and give my husband and my children the best if I'm not taking care of myself. So those are some things, some small things that I put into place. I carry a journal. I try to be very reflective
That's good.
and do that deep work
Yeah.
again, that beneath the surface type work,
Yep.
so that I can be continuously growing and be my best self. So
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you heard it right here, everyone. This is the one and only Lori Ruffin of the COO team. And so, Lori, how can people get in touch with you? How do they know that they are ready to bring the COO team to help them with their systems?
absolutely. So you can reach us at www.thecooteam.com, thecooteam.com. So even the name of our company is founded in the idea that smaller organizations don't usually have a COO or chief operating officer.
Yeah.
So if you are a leader of a nonprofit, a small business, or a social enterprise, and you find yourself wearing a lot of hats, with a big vision and trying to get something major done in the world, and you're like, I'm spinning my wheels, or we're getting ready to pivot and I just need an outside perspective,
Yeah.
or our team needs to grow, or we're getting ready to launch a new service or new vertical, new product, and we don't have a strategic plan to help us, you know, figure out all the things that we need to do, that's where you call the COO team. We work with organizations one-on-one as well as in a cohort where organizations are able to kind of cross-pollinate as they're building
That's good.
their personal strategic focus as well as their individual strategic people plans. And so anything in the area of strategy, people, operations, we've got you. You're ready to grow,
Excellent.
we've got you.
Excellent. Great. We'll make sure we put all that info in our show notes so everyone knows where to contact you. So thank you so much, Lori, for all of this amazing knowledge. And we look forward to just what is next for you and the COO team.
Yes, thanks. We're really excited. This year has been just taken off, and we're really excited to continue to serve. I also should mention, if you missed the elements that are part of a people plan or those elements that are part of a strategic plan, we can leave Samantha with a link so that you can download those tips. That way, you can
Excellent.
take a look at that, take a look at your organization, and see where there are any gaps, and give us a call if you want some help closing them.
Excellent. Great. Yes, we'll definitely leave that information. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will see you back for our next episode.